18 years old, our guest may have designed something that could help address homelessness in a practical, scalable way. Ribal Zebian is here with us. And Ribal, what is your solution?
So when you look outside with the housing, right, as we progress and we evolve in age, a lot of the things that we do have to adapt, have to change so that it fits our needs. And when I looked at the way our homes are being built, right, we're using the same method from around 100 years ago. You know, our population doesn't suffice for those type of things, right? Our population is much larger. We're bringing in a lot of people from many countries to Canada to support people. So, you know, we're looking towards speed and efficiency and practicality. And I've seen the way modular homes are built. It's great, you know, it's effective, but there's some problems with that. You don't always have access to heavy machinery like cranes that can assemble these things on site. Is that true? Right? And not only that, when we're needing to create many homes at once, delivery is also a problem, especially for modular homes that require special transportation. So all these things were taken into account in consideration when I was trying to create and devise a method where we can create affordable housing for all, right? If we get all of these points right, housing can become affordable as we scale more. And, you know, I'm a huge fan of taking things from many different industries because each industry does something very good. It doesn't do everything very good, but it does at least one thing very good. And when you take the good from each and every one of those industries, you couple it together, put it together, you find a way to puzzle it in a proper manner, you essentially have the most supreme product in which you can create for that given moment of time.
Wow. Well, Ribal, I mean, wonderful, wonderful solution you have here. But you know what? I'm actually very interested. Before you got to the solution, what at the end of the day, and what motivated you to pursue this important project and actually come up with your design? Like, when did this occur to you? I need to do this, and why?
Yeah, so I would see a lot of things, and you know, our country, right? It's a system, it's a factory. If one part of that blows and goes away, it makes other things harder. You know, I've always been a fan of the automotive industry. I'm a huge fan of cars, lover of cars. But as I got older, I understood the supply chain and how things work. I noticed that if I ever wanted to work on things like that, our economy would need to be doing well, our people need to be doing well, and if the system as a whole isn't doing well, I can't do what I like. So when I saw that there are certain things that can prevent these interests, these hobbies, I thought to myself, okay, if I want to do this as a hobby later, I have to fix these now, or else essentially it will be impossible long term or very difficult. So I noticed the bottleneck of our system is housing. You know, it causes an array of problems in which if we don't solve this problem, other problems occur. And when I'm looking at my city, a while back I did a prototype reveal for this modular home. I revealed version 1 prototype. And if you look around the city, you'll notice there's a lot of homeless people on the street. And then there's two categories to homeless people. There is homeless by choice and there is homeless by force. Homeless by force is the area in which we need to look at, focus on as Canadians. Homeless by force, in essence, is when a person is either one job offer away from getting back on their feet and making things right, or they've recently lost their job due to an unfortunate circumstance. They can no longer cover their mortgage, pay their loans, and support their family. So what happens now, because of that unfortunate instance, they're on the streets with their families. This is homeless by force, right? If we don't support, because these people, they're taxpayers, they're very important assets to our economy. If we don't support these people during a very tough moment, we essentially lose a very important piece of our economy, a pillar. If we continue to lose another one, and another one, and this trend continues, this is where we see a lot of problems occurring, right? And when you have a lot of homeless people on the street, this becomes a liability for the government. It affects people who are walking by. It affects real estate. It affects many other things. It makes your streets more dangerous. Crime rates are driven up from this, right? Now, when a problem or injury or overdose happens because of this, Now we have a bottleneck in our healthcare system, right? If we prevented this issue from the beginning, we would never have this problem, right? And I'm not saying homeless people are not entitled to healthcare. They are 100%. Everybody's entitled to healthcare. But when an unfortunate instance like this occurs because of housing, where they lost their job and they're on the streets, okay? If we looked at this to begin with, we would never have this problem. Healthcare could be used to other things, right? Not towards this. So that's one thing. And essentially, if this problem is solved, all the other problems are much easier to solve. They aren't solved because this is solved. They're much easier to solve. So essentially, looking at the root cause of the problem is the most important thing if we want to figure out a lot of our issues and pose a solution.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And Ribal, you know, to tell you quite honestly, I think you have a promising career as an engineer. But I would encourage you to go into politics because you've really done your homework, and I think you've nailed a lot of things that's wrong with our society today. So I appreciate those comments.
Well, you did foreshadow something a little bit here. You know, when you're dealing with housing and you're trying to create a solution like this, it involves politics, right? You can't get by without politics. If the politicians don't agree, if the big guys up top do not agree, you're not going to get very far. Which is why this summer the plan is I run for city council of my area, and we can propose this as a solution for the people. And you know, sometimes things like this take a little bit of time, where you have to wait for voting, right, between the councillors to get an agreement. Which is why I worked very hard, and there have been very, nice, generous people who reached out over the time. We've reached a point where we now have around 13 plus acres of land to support this initiative. In addition, we have that. And also, to add on, if I were to win city councillor, right, because we want to speed up the process, we're about posing these solutions much quicker. I myself, the whole salary from this would be spent towards a housing program for the people, right? Because if I could kickstart, exactly. If I could kickstart this while we're waiting for the government, by the time the government is ready, we already have people living in these homes, right?
Right. Well, you mentioned you already have the acreage in escrow and ready to go. Maybe more on an engineering side of it. What makes the modular design of your solution different from others and scalable?
So one thing that makes this modular design very different is that you don't need heavy equipment to assemble it. It can be all assembled by hand. You don't need cranes like that. It also can be shipped in a U-Haul.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Exactly, yeah. So you don't need any flatbed trailer. You don't need special permission from the city to haul these things. It can be shipped in a U-Haul. It's compact. It's tight. Benefit of this is that now you could ship many at once, right? And I told you one thing earlier, that every industry does something very, very good. And the good thing, so if we look at how plates, if we look at how plates are packaged, right? You could stack around 50, 60, 70, even 120 plates. You don't get much volume, right?
Right.
We took that concept for our home. It's a part of the roofing system. You could exactly. So that's why I said you have to nail every single point down so you can bring affordable housing. It's not just getting cheap material. It's about ensuring that you got your transportation right. It's ensuring you have efficiency in the assembly line. It's everything has to fit together and has to come together in harmony. If you don't have everything coming together in harmony, you're not going to get the best result. And along with this, when you're creating homes for the people at this standard, you're also creating jobs at the same time for people, right? Are these homes as large as the homes we have right now, like 3, 4, 5,000 square foot? No. Base amount is around 400 to 600 square foot, but these homes are expandable. The way it's designed and engineered allows you to increase the size without any change or difference. and this is very, very important for growing families, since when you have to sell your home, you have to wait months and years, right? If you need more space,
Right.
you got to pay your real estate agent $30,000, $40,000 or whatever the percentage is, 3 to 5%. And once you purchase your home, you have that. And I think they brought a new thing where you have to pay like a land tax when you buy a home now in London, Ontario. You have to pay another fee for the land. I don't know how that rate works, but from what I know, for a home that's around maybe 1.5, $1.8 million, you're going to be paying around $50,000 for that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's also an issue.
Okay. Well, you're speaking about
Yeah.
costs now. I think our viewers and even myself, I guess I'll ask you the question: what is the projected cost for something like this, and how are you funding this? I know you mentioned the politics behind it, but as we are today, I mean, obviously there was quite a bit of money spent on this entire endeavor so far, and you are moving ahead with a lot of this on the acreage you have. How do you fund this thing?
Yeah, so I'll tell you one thing I learned when I built the wooden Mercedes G-Wagon SUV. If you're a good negotiator and a good convincer, you can get things for a fraction of the cost. You don't need to pay sticker price, right?
Right.
I built something that would cost a shop around $120,000. I built that for less than how much was it? Less than 5 figures, much less than that. I'll tell you, it's below 10 grand. I built it, much below that. So
Okay.
the same concept is brought towards these homes, right? You're not going to pay whatever retail price is on a material or two, right? You're going to do your best to negotiate the price as low as possible. Propose ideas, solutions. And speaking of ideas and solutions, there is a very strong chance there will be a partnership with a container home builder. Essentially, what this is going to do is it's going to accelerate the rate at which we have these out to the public. There's already established ground. And also, like you said, it helps with funding, it helps cut costs, right? These are two different fields, modular homes and container homes, but both can learn a lot from each other.
So I want to make sure people understand this. What you've designed isn't just theoretical. So
No.
who could actually use this type of housing unit beyond like for
You can have it in the countryside, and you can have it for homeless people. And there's a lot of homeless people, right? And there's waiting lists and stuff like that. Of course, you're gonna look for the most high priority people first, and that's families, right? After you have that covered, then you're gonna go to the people below, and those are the other type of homeless people by force, so like how I explained earlier. And then you go below that, and then you get the homeless people by choice. Homeless people by choice. The reason why we get homeless people by force is because we want to get to these people and help them before they get to homeless by choice, right? If we can stop them, if we could stop them from getting to the point where they're no longer fixable, I won't say no longer fixable, but very difficult to help, right? Because some homeless people, due to the issues they're dealing with, it's very hard for them to help themselves. They know that like they're in a really bad position, but what they have to deal with makes it extremely difficult for them to get out of the problem they're in, right? Which is why when you get to them early on in the stage, you can help them out much quicker, much easier, and much cheaper. Although money is not like the main importance, it's all a factor as a whole. And also the homeless people homeless people by choice, right? Some of these homes, right, we're gonna have to remodel the inside in a way where it's gonna handle the abuse, right? So it's gonna need to withstand that because these will be used long term. And with the housing program I'll be creating if I win city council, it'll essentially be a program that a person will use one of these units for around 3 months, just so that we can help them get back on their feet, get a job again, and start pumping money back into the economy. Because the economy is all built on goods and services and how the money circulates. If we don't have enough goods and services provided for the amount of money, then we have inflation, right? So that's one thing.
I see. Well, I mean, obviously, you've got some wonderful ideas, and you're well on your way of really creating a wonderful solution for people that really, really need it. So here we are today having this discussion. What stands in your way today? Is it policy? Is it funding? Or even adoption of your idea? What's the biggest obstacle right now?
Um, I'll start with this. I've done a very good job in convincing uh, individuals and investors of adopting this idea. So that's not a concern. Land is not a concern. Money, we could work around that, right? If we're smart with what we do and we're efficient. You don't need an infinite amount of money or $1 billion to start something, right? You start small and you ramp it up as you go. Policy, that's the only thing. There isn't a clear issue yet with policy, but I like to project and predict for the future that there could potentially be an issue with policy, which is why, I like to do everything in my power to minimize these issues, which is why I told you the idea of, no, the plan of running for city council this summer. And if I could secure that, I think for the most part, I've secured this whole thing, and we could move with confidence and with the understanding and vision that we can get this forward. And when you look at the national debt Canada has for mortgages, for household mortgages, it's around $2.6 trillion, and mortgages as a whole, loans as a whole, is around $4.6 trillion. And what happens here? If I could show you guys this. Okay, so I told you earlier that uh, we have around $4.6 trillion of national debt,
Right.
and this essentially is a model of our economy, right? What happens is when we lose our jobs, so it's predicted that around 50% of white collar workers will lose their job um, within the next 5 years due to things like AI. But there's also unexpected things that could happen, right? Like I mentioned earlier, you get an injury, uh, potentially insurance doesn't cover, and you lose your job. That's also a part of this. And then what we have currently right now in the Middle East, oil and gas, rise of prices for oil and gas, it's a really big problem that some people may not understand at the moment or pay attention to. And now when our white collar workers lose their jobs, 50% of them, now they're forced to sell their stocks that they have in the company.
Right.
Okay. And then what happens is, now a lot of them can't pay they have to sell those stocks so that they can pay for their homes. Okay. And then what happens here is the banks, right? They rely mainly on the AAA group, the people who have a very good credit score and they can depend on to pay these loans. Now, if these people aren't doing well, if they're feeling the struggle and the pressure of paying off these debts, right, while the upper people or the people with the lower credit score are out of the page, what happens to them is now they're starting to fall and come out of the page. And now we're going to have a problem with our mortgages. Unpaid mortgages will result in houses being closed and foreclosed. And when you look at during COVID-19, when the bank was giving very low interest rates around 1 and 2%, people didn't take into account the possibility that if the bank wants to renew the mortgage in 5 years to potentially 6, 7, or 8%, they have the right to. Or even if they don't want to renew your mortgage, right? That's also a possibility. So what happens here is people lose their homes and they're on the streets. Now we need a plan B for this. If there's no plan B, if there's no system in place that can, catch these people just for, a short duration of time and help them back up, now the system of our country starts to lose itself. So essentially what will happen to our economy, it's done like that, right?
Yeah.
So that's essentially what's going to happen. It's a sad truth if we don't take this very seriously. One thing I was going to add to this, if the more, so I mentioned something about people, right, who would work and provide for our economy. If they start falling down and joining the homeless, and we have more people like this, and there's more liabilities. If you think of it as an assembly line in a factory, where if one assembly line shuts down, and then another one shuts down, okay, and then one worker no longer works, we're losing efficiency, we're losing productivity, our input is not as much as we want the output to be, right? Output decreases dramatically, input increases. We don't have enough supply for demand, and inflation is just going to be astronomically high, and beyond what you should be paying for the basic needs.
You are planning on moving into one of these homes, I guess.
Exactly.
That's your prototype, and you're going to do that in May, if I'm not mistaken.
So there was one thing with the reporter. He misinterpreted it. This summer, the plan is to move into it. So within the time between May to August, that's the plan, to moving into it. There might be, if there's a potential delay, only reason why there's a potential delay is because there's a partnership we might do, and we're going to advance this as much as possible so that we can bring, the most optimal product, right? And again, I'll be testing this for 1 year, all the 4 seasons, and I do believe this is the best way to validate what you're promoting to the people. If you believe what you preach, you have to test it yourself. You have to practice what you preach if you believe it. Is that true or no?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly.
Especially if you're out selling it. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. You can't run short on that type of stuff, right?
And just very quickly, tell us again the materials that you're using.
So it's a hybrid. It's a hybrid of some fiberglass. There's also a combination of wood, a combination of galvanized steel. And there's some, I think it's called PEC or so, because we also want this to look, quite nice in the inside too. We don't want it to be we don't want it to look like solitary confinement. We want it to be something where a person can live in for some time, appreciate it, and they don't come out with any issues, right? So, I believe it's called PVC and some other type of paneling for the interior. Only reason why we're opting for those and we're not going to drywall, although drywall is cheap, is because labor costs quite a bit, and these pieces are direct install, so it's much more affordable, optimal when you're mass scaling these type of stuff. And one thing for these homes is around 100, 150 years ago, when there was a shortage of homes and they needed to build a lot of homes pretty quick, the reason why they built homes as squares is because they're easily replicatable, right? That's why they don't go for irregular shapes like circles, triangles. They don't go for rectangles, right? If each side is equal and even, right, it's much more efficient and easier to build a lot of these homes. And that's one of the things of mass production, where when you have stuff like this figured out and simple and lined up after another, it does make a large difference. Every minor thing, because when you live in something long enough, you use something long enough, you start to notice flaws in it.
Yeah.
So I do believe 1 year is enough to do that. It might not catch 100% of the flaws, but you're gonna be pretty accurate with what you catch, right? It'll be ideal for what a consumer will use. If not, it could be potentially better than what the average consumer uses, because a lot of products here aren't tested for that much time, for at least a year. I haven't really heard much about it, and for all 4 seasons, it does seem pretty good, because the first one needs to be tested by the person who creates it. He understands the system, he understands how it goes, and I don't want people using something that is a half-assed product, if you know what I mean. It needs to be 100% finished and ready to move in.
Ribal Zebian is an engineering student at the University of Western Ontario.